With a large rally, the people of Argentina celebrated the Militancy Day, the 50th anniversary of the return of Juan Domingo Peron from exile. Russia denounced that the United States and its partners intend to include the Ukrainian conflict on the agenda of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. As part of his official visit to Algeria, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, reported having reached agreements to boost economic, commercial, financial, and cooperation ties to bring them to the level of political ones. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. With a large rally, the people of Argentina celebrated Militancy Day, the 50th anniversary of the return of Juan Domingo Peron from exile. The meeting, led by the Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, took place at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium in the city of La Plata. The event seeks to commemorate Peron's return to Argentina after 17 years in exile. During her speech, Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner highlighted the respect for life above differences of any kind as one of the achievements of Peronism. She also assured that the democratic pact to respect life was broken in the country after the assassination attempt that took place last September the 1st.
It's a great achievement. The great achievement that we incorporated. That agreement where we could have all the differences in the world, but nobody wanted to kill anybody. Nobody wanted to kill anybody else just because they thought differently, not even those who had turned death into a political instrument.
Likewise, Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner pointed out the need to include the issue of citizen security in the democratic agreement's presentations.
We Argentinians must incorporate the issue of security into the debate and the democratic agreement, a complex issue that today Argentinian society suffers as a whole. We must put an end to absurd debates because democracy has a debt with our neighbors, security, the neighbors, the citizens, and no political party has been able to solve that.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, highlighted the work of the multidisciplinary team that built the territorial defense of the Venezuelan Essequibo before the International Court of Justice.
I want to publicly recognize today before you our Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez Gomez, who has given a historical lesson today before the International Court of The Hague, defending the historical rights of the Essequibo that Venezuela has forever and ever, taking the slogan of Venezuela to the International Court of Justice. The son of Venezuela is born in the Essequibo. I want to congratulate the legal diplomatic team of historians of Venezuela because they have fought for our Essequibo. Sooner rather than later, we shall emerge victorious from that battle. A battle for the legal and territorial rights of Venezuela over the Essequibo region.
In Colombia, the 6th edition of the China-Colombia Dialogue, organized by the Chinese Embassy in Bogotá and the Colombian-Chinese Chamber of Investment and Commerce, began on Thursday. In Colombia, the 6th edition of the China-Colombia Dialogue, organized by the Chinese Embassy in Bogotá and the Colombian-Chinese Chamber of Investment and Commerce, began on Thursday. Representatives of the Bogotá Mayor's Office and the several Chinese companies are taking part in the meeting. Chinese ambassador in Bogotá, Mr. Lan Hu, said China's investments in Colombia are a key factor in the country's economic development. He said direct Chinese investments in Colombia during the first quarter of this year amounted to $243 million. The Chinese diplomat said that exchanges between the two countries will offer a wider scope and infinite possibilities of cooperation, as well as the integral development of other Colombian industries. Another Chinese government official said that relations between the two countries have always maintained a good momentum.
China's Communist Party 20th National Congress has created opportunities for the development of relationships between China and Colombia. China will continue to adhere to the base national policy of opening up and the correct direction of economic globalization. It will continue to provide new opportunities for the world with the new Chinese development, and this will better benefit the people of all countries, including Colombia.
We'll take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Russia denounced that the United States and its partners intend to include the Ukrainian conflict on the agenda on the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. Russia's Foreign Ministry's Special Missions Ambassador representing Moscow at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, Kirill Vasiv, regrets that the constructive work of the APEC during 2022 has been hindered by Australia, Canada, the United States, New Zealand and Japan, with their attempts to politicize the forum. In addition, he said that the West is trying to blame Russia for the unfavorable world economic situation, while Moscow is trying to explain that the global recession is due to disruptions in supply chains, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the unilateral measures against it. The United Nations organization welcomed the renewal of the food agreement that facilitates the export and stated that he welcomes with great satisfaction the pact that seeks to facilitate and to ease the safe navigation in the export of food and fertilizers from Ukraine. The information was confirmed by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky through his Twitter account. On the other hand, the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, assured from the G20 summit on the island of Bali, Indonesia, that the Russian President Vladimir Putin consented to renew the agreement that allows the export of Russian grain and fertilizers. President Xi Jinping stressed that China views relations with the Philippines from a strategic perspective. These statements were made by the Chinese president during his participation in the 29th meeting of economic leaders of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, APEC, which is being held in Bangkok. Xi Jinping urged the bloc to strengthen learning from experiences, respond to the challenges of these times, and firmly advance in regional economic integration. At the same time, the president of the Philippines, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos, said that the maritime issue should not define the entire relationship between the Philippines and China, and that the two sides can further strengthen communication in this regard. In Indonesia, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Chinese leader Xi Jinping hold bilateral talks as the leaders of Asia's two biggest economies meet on the sidelines of a Pacific Rim summit in Bangkok. President Xi Jinping stressed that China and Japan are different in social system and national conditions, and the two countries need to step up dialogue and cooperation in such areas as digital economy, green development, fiscal and financial sectors, healthcare and old age care, and in keeping the industrial and supply chains stable and unclogged so as to realize complementarity and mutual benefits at a higher level. At least 21 people died and 3 houses were destroyed after a gas explosion in Iraq on Thursday. A large gas cylinder on the roof of a residential building exploded in the northern Iraqi city of Sulaymaniyah, leaving 6 people dead and 30 injured. According to news agencies, civil defense firefighters managed to contain the fire. The explosion completely destroyed at least 3 houses and 5 cars. So far, rescuers are still searching for survivors, as an unknown number of people were trapped under the rubble. The president of the Kurdistan regional government, Masroor Barzani, ordered an investigation into the incident. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. As part of his official visit to Algeria, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, reported having reached agreements to boost economic, commercial, financial, and cooperation ties to bring them to the level of political ones. At a press conference with his Algerian counterpart, the Cuban president highlighted the presence of the high-level delegation from the largest of the Antilles that has arrived in the African country. The Cuban president reaffirmed the will to continue with the brotherhood cemented by the historical leaders of both nations. He also affirmed that they have identified areas and projects of collaboration that are important and on which they will work together.
During our meeting, we will try to alleviate a little the Cuban economic context, canceling the services of the debt and postponing its payment to another time. Also, Algeria offers Cuba a solar power plant for electricity production. Algeria provides photovoltaic service for the city of Havana, capital of Cuba.
For his part, the Cuban president highlighted the excellent state of political relations between the two nations and expressed that economic and commercial relations should be enhanced.
These are important areas in which we will work together. They represent a mutual benefit, but above all they mean for our country an important support that demonstrates the understanding towards our situation. Our two governments have identified areas such as health, energy, renewable sources, medical pharmaceutical industry, culture, scientific, educational, technological exchange as the most provisional ones for our collaboration.
Reported 2 killed in a second deadly building collapse. The building collapsed on a neighboring house, killing 2 people. The early morning collapse is the second such incident this week, as building authorities warned of unsafe buildings in and around the city. 3 other people were rescued alive from the family home next to the collapsed building, located in the Ruaka neighborhood. Building collapses are common in Nairobi, where there is a high demand for housing, and unscrupulous developers often fail to comply with safety standards. Following building collapses in Kenya in 2015, the presidency ordered an audit to check whether buildings in the country met the standards, and the National Building Authority found that 58% of Nairobi's buildings were unfit for habitation. The Syrian government announced an amnesty decree to benefit over 2,300 military and civilian individuals wanted by the prosecutor's office and as an act of national reconciliation. The program, promoted by Damascus, aims at fostering national reconciliation. The decree will especially favor military and civilian citizens wanted by prosecutor's office for their involvement in the armed conflict imposed by the West more than a decade ago. Similar policies have generated positive results in the past, including the demobilization of violent groups and the voluntary surrendering of weapons and military equipment, which allows these sectors to regularize their legal situation in order to reincorporate into society. And the Qatar 2022 World Cup focuses the eyes of the whole world on the Arabic Peninsula of Qatar, its culture, its history, and people. From Doha, our special envoy Rolando Segura with the details.
The eyes of the world look to Qatar, the nation located in the Arabian Peninsula, which shares an 87-kilometer land border with Saudi Arabia. Just under 3 million inhabitants live here, but only 300,000 are Qatari. The rest migrants like the family of Pedro and Maria, who came from Spain in 2014. Since then, they say much has changed in these parts.
Not only at the building and infrastructure level, but also infrastructure, I believe that the country has opened up much more to the rest of the world.
Arriving in a country with Islam as the official religion and Wahhabi Sunnis as the most representative factions, Maria was confident of job opportunities, but imagined an extremely conservative culture with complications for the women.
And it has been just the opposite. It has its things, but within the religion, I live a normal life. I had my daughter here too, and they treated me very well in a Cuban hospital they have here, and they treated me very well. I didn't want to leave the hospital.
Qatar is an emirate ruled by the Al Thani family since the mid-19th century and refused to join the Federation of the United Arab Emirates when it became independent in 1971. After 55 years of British protectorate, the current king, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, is seen by many as a modernizer.
Qatar, of course, good county, Qatar is #1, Sheikh Tamim is #1, or like #1, Qatar of good place.
A territory with mild winters and extremely hot summers where the geography, practically desert, has not made its inhabitants arid.
They are lovely people, very welcoming and very helpful. They can do that for you.
The search for jewels was Qatar's economy engine for several centuries until price plummeted in the 1920s with the cultivation of pearls, especially in Japan. In 1839, oil made the nation rich, but it was its large natural gas reserves shared with Iran that allow today one of the highest real gross domestic product per capita incomes in the world.
And it welcomes people from all religions, countries, as long as we respect that it is a Muslim country.
Qatar's sporting tradition has at its core camel racing, horse racing, and hunting with trained birds of prey. Football was inherited from migrants from the energy sector. The 2022 World Cup accelerated investment in infrastructure and began to position the country as a family, art and culture tourist destination.
Rolando Segura, TeleSUR, Doha.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.